Hey, welcome back. Sometimes history feels like a series of grand, sweeping decisions made in faraway rooms. Treaties signed, borders drawn, declarations read. But the real story, the human pulse of it, is almost always somewhere else. It's in the dust, the noise, and the impossible choices of people who never expected to be on the front page. I'm Ibnul J. Farabi, and this is Flashpoints, the wars that shaped us. Today, we're going to a small mining town in the heart of Africa in 1961, a place called Jadotville. And we're going to meet a group of soldiers who were sent on a peacekeeping mission, only to find themselves fighting one of the most brutal, one-sided sieges in modern military history. This is the story of the Siege of Jadotville, a forgotten battle that asks a difficult question. What do you do when the world's promise of peace collapses right on top of you? So let's set the stage. It's 1961. The Congo has just gained independence from Belgium, but the transition is chaotic. The province of Katanga, rich with copper and uranium, secedes. The United Nations launches Operation des Nations Unies au Congo, a peacekeeping mission to prevent a wider war and reintegrate Katanga. Into this tinderbox, in early September, are sent 155 Irish soldiers from a company, 35th Infantry Battalion. Most of them are young, many on their first overseas mission. Their commander is a quiet, competent commandant named Pat Quinlan. Their orders? To protect the European citizens in the town of Jadotville and, above all, to avoid conflict. To be a calming presence. They set up camp near the town, and almost immediately, Quinlan feels a deep unease. The tension is palpable. He requests heavier weapons, mortars, and recoilless rifles from his UN superiors. His requests are largely denied. Peacekeepers, he's reminded, don't need that kind of firepower. Meanwhile, across the Congo, the UN makes a decisive move. They launch a major operation to detain foreign mercenaries leading the Katangese forces. It works, but it also lights the fuse. The Katangese, furious and now leaderless, turn their anger on the most visible UN symbol they can find, that isolated Irish company in Jadotville. On the morning of September 13th, as many of Quinlan's men are attending Mass, the attack begins. Katangese gendarmes, supported by hundreds of mercenaries, open fire. The Irish soldiers scramble to their positions. And just like that, the peacekeeping mission is over. They are at war. What follows is nothing short of a masterclass in defensive tactics, born out of sheer desperation. Quinlan, despite being denied the tools he asked for, proves to be a brilliant field commander. He orders his men to dig. They turn their perimeter into a labyrinth of trenches and firing pits. The Katangese forces, on the other hand, are well equipped. They have heavy machine guns, mortars, and, most crucially, a French Fouga Magister jet fighter, flown by a mercenary pilot. For 5 days, the Irish company is bombarded from the air and assaulted by ground forces that eventually swell to nearly 4,000 men. Think about that ratio, 155 men against 4,000. And yet, they hold. They use disciplined, aimed rifle fire to devastating effect, cutting down wave after wave of attacks. They have almost no heavy weapons, so they rely on marksmanship, discipline, and those life-saving trenches. They are running low on water, as the Katangese cut off their access to the local river. The heat is unbearable. They are exhausted, dehydrated, under constant fire. But they inflict staggering casualties on their attackers while suffering only minor wounds themselves. Not a single Irish soldier is killed in the direct fighting. It's a testament to their training and Quinlan's leadership. But where is the UN? Where is the relief force? That's the other, more painful layer of this story. A relief column of Irish and Swedish troops is assembled, but it's stopped miles away by blown bridges and heavily fortified Katangese roadblocks. Attempts to resupply a company by air fail, with planes unable to land under fire. The men in Jadotville can hear the distant battles as their comrades try to reach them, but the sound never gets closer. They are utterly, completely alone. The final blow isn't military, it's logistical. They run out of water. After 5 days of heroic resistance, with no hope of relief and his men suffering from severe dehydration, Commandant Quinlan makes the only decision he can. He negotiates a ceasefire, and a company surrenders. They become prisoners of war. This is where the story, for me, becomes deeply personal and not just as a student of history. As an engineer, I'm trained to look at systems, their design, their points of failure. The system at Jadotville failed those men on every level. They were given a mission without the means to accomplish it. They were left exposed. And then, after their incredible stand, they were met with something perhaps worse than the siege itself: silence. When they were eventually released in a prisoner exchange, they returned home not to parades, but to a quiet sense of institutional embarrassment. For years, the Irish Army and the UN didn't really talk about Jadotville. The official reports seemed to gloss over their valor and focus on the fact of their surrender. These men, who had fought so brilliantly, felt branded by that single word: surrender. It took decades for the truth to be fully acknowledged, for Commandant Quinlan's tactics to be studied in military academies, and for the Irish state to finally award the company a unit citation in 2017, over 50 years later. That's the real flashpoint here. It's not just the battle. It's the chasm between the ideal and the real. The UN's mission in the Congo was noble in intent, to preserve a fragile peace. But on the ground, in places like Jadotville, ideals don't stop bullets. Peacekeeping only works if everyone agrees to keep the peace. When one side doesn't, the soldiers on the ground are left in an impossible bind, caught between their rules of engagement and the basic human instinct to survive. The men of a company did more than just survive. They upheld their duty to each other with a courage that defies belief. They fought not for a flag or a political cause in that trench, but for the man next to them. And their legacy is a stark reminder that history's truest measure is often taken not in the halls of power, but in the dirt, with your back against the wall, doing what you must to bring your people home. Thanks for listening to this episode of Flashpoints. If this story resonated with you, if you believe these overlooked chapters of history deserve to be remembered, please help us keep telling them. Share this episode with someone. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts, and for more from us, visit our producers at Light Not Studios. https://www.lightnotstudios.com. I'm Ibnul J. Farabi. Until next time, take care.